Yeah. Yo, pull up a chair, let the real talk begin. Faith on the table where the brothers lock in. Life gets heavy, but we stand our ground. Truth in the room when the circle comes round. No mask, no front, just real men here. Talking about faith through the doubt and the fear. From the grind of the week to the lessons we share. Welcome to the men's round table, pull up a chair. Men's round table series, step inside. Real men, real faith where the truths collide. Voices at the table where the stories get shared. Welcome to the men's round table, pull up a chair.
Welcome back to the Men's Roundtable Series Spotlight. I'm your host, Mr. U. Wherever you are and however you're watching this show, thanks again for making us part of your week. We're live on Facebook and YouTube, and of course, you can find all the shows on our brand across all podcast listening and social media platforms. Thank you for joining us today. Our spotlight's always about the same thing, where men rebuild from the inside out. We have a gentleman with us today who's going to help us do that. He's an entrepreneur who has built, bought, and sold more than a dozen businesses, generating more than $450 million in revenue. He's also the leader of the Kronos Group. We got with us Jerry Brazie today. Jerry, good to have you in the house, man. Thanks for being here.
I appreciate you having me on. Thank you. Looking forward to it.
Same here, sir. All right, so one of the things that we do on this show, just for a point of reference, this show is a sister show to our Men's Roundtable Series podcast, where we talk about everything germane to men. It's a safe space that we built for husbands, fathers, brothers, and sons. So this is just a microcosm of that kind of conversation. I want to go ahead and jump right in, man, while we have the time that we do. Talk to me about some of your background. If I understand right, you grew up in extreme poverty. A lot of violence was a part of that as well. And you were able to leave that environment and build something great with your life. What would you say was a part of that environment that kind of shaped your mindset the most? Can you pinpoint what that was?
You know, when I was 14 years old, I had an interesting year. When I was 13, my older sister, I have eight brothers and sisters. My parents had 6 kids when they were 23 years old. And then 7 years later, I came along. And so my next oldest sister, who was 7 years older than me, kind of was my mother, the babysitter, those sorts of things. And she died on her 21st birthday, the eve of her 21st birthday, when I was 13. And so a few months later, when I was 14, out of nowhere, I got a virus in my right eye that ate my retina. Now, again, we are abject poverty. There is no money, mostly a street kid. I got my first job, though, as an 11-year-old. I paid taxes in 1980 as an 11-year-old at a local restaurant that I worked at, and never not had a job since. So I was always working. And so I had a good connection. That first job I had at 11, I got to pick what I wanted to eat off the menu, which is the first restaurant food I had ever eaten. And from then on, food and work went hand in hand and kind of melded in my brain that those two things always went together. So I always had a job. Now I'm 14. I go blind in my right eye. I got a virus that ate my right eye. It almost ate my left eye. So I go from having 20/20 vision to having almost no vision, having laser surgeries. This is very early laser surgeries in the early 80s. I got to keep my eye, but I'm blind in it. And now I'm walking down the street and I get mugged at an ATM. I should have known better. I was taking $80 out of the bank. I had 85 in there. I remember it very clearly. And you had to leave $5 in the bank back in those days. 4 dudes got me. I should have known better as a 14-year-old. This was in August of my 14th year. They put a beating on me pretty good, broke 2 ribs, broke my nose, and rolled me underneath a bus stop for dead and ran off. I thought that they ran off with everything that I had. It turns out that I got to keep everything that I had, which was my life. And so on my way home, a couple of bus transfers and a 2-mile walk. I got blood down my front. I'm black. Both eyes are black. Again, like I said, my nose was broken. And a voice said to me, same spot, Portland, Oregon, Northeast Portland, Oregon, same spot right now today, still has this big oversized square in the cement in the sidewalk. A voice said to me, I thought it was somebody in a duplex yelling at me behind my head. It was a female. This is a true story. Said to me, everything is your fault. Now I'm a street kid, right? I come from nothing. I said, what are you talking about? Everything's my fault, after I figured out there wasn't someone yelling at me. And the voice said to me, everything is your fault. No one's going to help you. If you keep doing what you're doing, you're going to be like everybody else. It was simple. I didn't understand it. I don't know where it came. Jesus, Buddha, Confucius, my conscious Jiminy Cricket. I don't know where it came from. I don't know where the teaching came from. I didn't have a counselor. I didn't have anything like that in my life. And yet the voice told me that everything is going to be your fault. I got to watch because I was child number 7, and my older brothers and sisters were all 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 years older than me, that cigarettes equaled drinking, and drinking equaled drugs, and drugs equaled prison, and teenagers equaled sex and things of that nature, and sex equaled babies as teenagers. And so I kind of got to see those things kind of tie together and avoid them. So I've never smoked, I've never drank, and I've never done drugs. And I've had a job since I was 11 years old so that I always had something to do. And maybe a little bit extra street smarts, a little bit extra IQ when it comes to common sense. And I was able to take that. Not that I didn't avoid going to jail, not that I didn't avoid trouble, but I was able to avoid the big trouble because I had the ability to watch how not to act. I had examples that I paid attention to. So rather than worship them, like happens so often, I was able to find better role models, I suppose, or no role models at all, and kept myself out of trouble.
Yeah, I can relate to not having role models, but we're here. Praise the Lord.
Yep.
A lot of people assume that success like yours, it just comes from positive mindset, confidence, things like that. But you're a high performer. I recognize it when I see it. We're usually driven by something a lot deeper than that. What was the internal driver for you, Jerry, in your continuing to build on the success that you've been able to have?
I'll tell you what it was. My family. So I wasn't going to have kids because I come from such. I mean, my little brother and I have a little brother's 20 months younger than I am, and we were stealing food as kids to eat, as you can imagine, with 2 older brothers and 3 older sisters with that many years in between. The food had trouble coming around the table, if you know what I'm talking about. And so we're stealing food and all of that. And so I wasn't going to have that for my children. So I wasn't going to have children. And I was running, I had from 11 years old until I was 22, I probably had 15 jobs. I didn't get fired. I was a good employee. I showed up all of the time. I would give 2 weeks notice and I would go work somewhere else because somebody would pay me more money. So I realized very quickly as 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 years old that I had value, that I was able to work. I didn't complain. I took whatever the job was that they gave me. It turns out McDonald's, I worked for 9 months at McDonald's when I was 16 years old. I quit McDonald's and I went to work for Safeway because Safeway offered me more money. But while I worked at McDonald's, they paid me $3.15 an hour, but they let me bring in the product at night in the freezers. I mean, it's the worst job nobody else wanted. They let me change out all of the fryers, which was just this terrible job that no one wanted. Oh. But I learned from it. I took from it. In the end, I said, they're paying me $3.15 an hour. And I learned skills that I use today in my businesses. My companies have done, like I said, we're coming up on $500 million in revenue across a dozen companies, made and lost fortunes along the way. And I used policies that I learned at McDonald's when I was 16 years old into place about organization and how to work. And so along the way, as every job just became another job, my drive kind of topped out when I met my wife at 20. We got married at 28 and my son was born. And the second my son was born, my life changed. If you ask me I give advice to this to young people all the time, young men in particular. If you ask me my advice on how to become successful, they're always waiting for some, finance this and invest in that and do this. And my answer is have children. Children bring money. They do not take money. You are lied to. We are lied to that children cost us money. Short term, certainly there is a cost to children, but long term, what they unlock, men, in our brains, they give us a purpose you will never find anywhere in the world. When I was 28 years old, my first son was born. I had a daughter 2 years later and a son 2 years later. And it opened my mind like a metamorphosis, like a Hulk emerged. 1 second, my wife is pregnant. And the next, anybody who has had a kid knows exactly what I'm talking about. The next second, she's no longer pregnant. And there's this little baby. And I was like, I can't be here. I got to go destroy. I have to go murder everything in sight. I have to go do more, my son will not grow up the way that I do. He will not have the experiences that I did. My children will have a life beyond what is imaginable to me at 25 years old or 20 years old. Forget about 17 years old. I'm living with hookers and heroin addicts in a $25 a week flop house. At 19 years old, I'm getting stabbed behind a bowling alley with a 10-inch screwdriver that stayed in my back. And I went home and fished it out over 6 hours in a bathtub on a Saturday morning, wrapped it with the only towel I had and duct tape, and went to work at my carpet warehouse job on Monday morning because a guy has to eat. I've seen what the world can throw at people, and I am telling everybody, you ask me what my key is. My key was my son was born. And when my son was born, man, now it's on. I cast aside all of my childish ways, as they say. And moving forward, I said, my wife and my son. So here's how I explain it. I'm a caveman, plain and simple. And my family lives in a cave in the back, one entrance, so nothing can come in and get them. And there's a fire and it's warm. And my children and my wife, my children are all grown now. I've been married coming up on 30 years, which is unimaginable to a 25-year-old Jerry. But I'm in that cave, and every morning I get to get up early and I get to go out. Now I'm going to go out in that tall grass and something might eat me. I'm going to go out in them tall trees and something might grab me. But I'm telling you what, I'm going to go hit a pterodactyl over the head, man, because I got a family at home that's got to be fed, and I'm going to drag that pterodactyl back. And if I can meet some dudes along the way that can help me knock over a bigger pterodactyl and we can take it down easier and lower the risk of hurting ourselves, all the more. But nothing's going to stop me. I'll do it by myself, drag that pterodactyl back, nurse my wounds while I watch my children eat, and get up the next morning, and I'm going to go crush it again. $450 million worth of revenue. Not a single penny have I earned doing anything I love. Because you know what? You know what I love? My family. I love my responsibility. I love living for them. I love the sacrifice. I love doing everything I can to make sure their lives are as full as they can be. And if I get injured in the process, well, that's why I am here. That's why God put me on this planet. So you ask me where my brain power comes from, why I'm pushed so hard to do all the things that I do. It's simple. I don't love a single thing that I do, but I'm passionate about it because I got mouths to feed at home, and they're the only thing that I care about.
I love it. Let's keep on moving. We got room for maybe a couple more questions or so. In regards to you mentioned something about men needing a better room. And that I relate to that because we put a lot of men's content out there. We got a roundtable series podcast with men from around the world and even around the country as well. And we talk about everything that you could think of that's a male issue. We talk about it in our safe space on the air in front of everybody, which is funny. But what would you say is the reason why you feel like men need a better room to be in? You could probably lean to accountability, mentorship, to be challenged, but what was your reasoning for behind that statement?
I talk with a lot of young men, a lot. It's a passion of mine, in particular, guys who come where I come from. And the last 10 or 15 years, but really going back, if we will, it's been really hard the last 10 years. But even going back 40 years to my childhood, men have always been portrayed as the morons. Men have always been portrayed as the idiots, right? You watch them on television, the father's always the bumbling father, and the mother's got it all together. And thank God for the mother, or the dad would screw everything up. Every movie has some woman coming in that weighs 125 pounds and is knocking the hell out of, 200-pound Navy SEALs, making all of the men look ridiculous. All of the geniuses on television are females, and all of the men are the cast-asides. And even Superman in the latest movie had a bunch of sidekicks that were kind of effeminate and female. It's just I'm not jumping down females' throats. What I'm talking about is men here need to understand that it is okay to be the warrior, as Sun Tzu said, in that garden, that it is okay. And we need to understand that we are dangerous human beings, that a man needs to embrace being that violent, dangerous human being, because what makes us civilized is we control it. But that doesn't mean that we give up who we are. And I think men need to embrace who they are. Toxic masculinity is a made-up word meant to control you. It is propaganda at its highest forms, meant to hold you down. Men, we built everything. We climb the mountains. We swim the streams. We dig the holes. And men need to understand that this is who we are, and that we have been set aside and we have been dismissed, and we have allowed it to happen. Society happens because we allow it. Society is safe because men allow it. Society is built because men allow it. I want men to embrace that. I love women. I've been married 30 years. My daughter is the apple of my eye. I eat dinner with her 4 days a week. I absolutely could not be more on the side of them. But I'm telling you that when it comes to who's going to protect, who's going to make sure civilization works correctly, who's going to make all of the big decisions that need to be done without emotion in a way that is going to benefit everybody, men need to embrace that. And I am the example. I am the kid from the street who grew up violent, who amassed amazing things, did unimaginable things to a 25-year-old Jerry, married 30 years, 2 kids in the military. They went to Chinese immersion school from 3 years old until 5th grade. And then I sent them to Catholic school, and then I sent them to a Christian high school so they'd have a well-rounded education. And I'm coming up on 30 years marriage. So this idea that we have to live this life and you have to expect that's what it's going to be, the narrative, right? That you can't be happy, that you can't have a home life and a business life, that you can't find success, that you have to give up being who you are. I'm against all of it. I want men to be who they are, men. It's okay not to have a quiet space. It's okay to feel depression and swallow it and man up and go out like a caveman and knock a pterodactyl over the head, as I use in that example. It is okay to do that. It is all right not to give into that feminized way of thinking that says that you too need to react to your emotions, because there is no thing in the world more dangerous than an emotional man. And there is nothing more crippling to a man than telling him he's a victim, because we don't understand what that means. It's just in the last 20 years that this thing has become a thing. Before then, we were the ones out there that created this house that I live in, the equipment that we're using to do this podcast on, and men need to understand and embrace the things that we are.
Yeah, congrats on the anniversary. We ended up on year 30 as well, so I'm pretty excited about the privilege of being able to do this, because I have come from a background where this should not be possible. I'm giving the credit. Yeah, I'm putting the credit where it belongs.
You don't believe it. A 20-year-old you or a 15-year-old you can't imagine the life you have today. That this would be. It wasn't supposed to happen. It wasn't going to happen in that person's mind. It wasn't going to happen at all. There was no context for it whatsoever. Somebody says a book that I love, and I'm gonna throw it out here. I get it's to offer so much credit, but Wild at Heart. That's the book that I think, if you want to get a better understanding of manhood and what it's supposed to look like, you highlighted some of that stuff. Wild at Heart by John Eldridge. That right there is the book that kind of speaks to exactly what you're talking about. So thanks for sharing that. 2 more questions, and we'll close the show out for today. So first question, Kronos Forge. Tell us why you started that. So I started the Forge originally when I was 30 years old. I started my first company at 28. I did 4 million, 8 million. I should say at 28. I had some investors. They didn't have the money they said they did. A year later, they came in and fired me. And so I went and started my own. And in the first 4 years, I did 4 million, 8 million, 12 million, and then 14 million. That's per year in revenue. So I was off and running, but I had no idea what I was doing. And so, remember, I have a 15-year-old's education. I bought a house when I was 20 years old because I read an article that said you needed to go and buy a house as an investment. I didn't know what a credit rating was. I didn't know what an interest rate was. And I didn't know what a mortgage was. And I didn't know what equity was. So I had no idea what any of those things were. But I read an article that said to go do that. That was the basis of my knowledge business-wise, was buying a house. 28 years old, I start a business. 29 years old, I start my own business, and it took off. And so at the time, I had made got it written up in a newspaper in my second year. So we were doing about 8 million a year. And the guy comes in, he's a retired Fortune 500 CEO, and he was putting together a peer-to-peer group. I didn't know what that was. I didn't have time. I'm working 18-hour days. I'm refereeing basketball games at night to keep the lights on while I'm trying to get my company running and getting it profitable and cash flowing. And he said, you can't afford not to. And then I said, how much is it? And he said, it's like $650 a month. And I was like, maybe you didn't hear that I'm refereeing basketball games tonight. He says, you can't afford not to. You got to be in this group. And he was right. And the group was 8 to 10 entrepreneurs sitting around a table one time a month. Everybody gets a half an hour and you talk about your business. And I learned, I was just quiet for the first 2.5 years. And I learned because these guys were all in their 40s and 50s and I was 30 years old. And they would tell stories or they would compare notes or they would say, I have this problem. This guy over here would say, well, here's how I fixed it. And I'd go, wait a minute, say that again. I have that same problem. And so I learned listening to those older guys. That group stayed together for 25 years. They're all in their 70s and 80s now. I'm 57. We get together and we have a meeting one time a year now. And so I said, I need to start my own group for that. So I started the Kronos Group. The Kronos Group is for 7-figure entrepreneurs. As I just defined it, that's essentially what it is. And then every entrepreneur gets an hour with me during the month also to talk about their business or whatever they want to talk about. It's business, it's life, it's anything that goes into being a 7-figure entrepreneur. But it eliminated, because it's for 7-figure and bigger entrepreneurs, a whole group of people, men in particular, that I wanted to talk to. And so as an add-on to that, to the Kronos Group, I started the Kronos Forge. And the Forge is a men's group. It's on the school community, SKOOL. We just literally are just breaking this thing out. And it's everything that your podcasts are about. That's why I was interested in your podcast and coming on. It's all about men and what we do as men. It's obviously built around my lifestyle. So I'm in the best shape of my life at 57 years old. I'm 6'4", 200.
Man. You look good. Go for it.
I'm 6'4", 225 pounds, and I have never been healthier. And I have a 40% block on my left ventricle. I'm blind in one eye. I broke my back when I was 19 years old. I had a 25-year opioid addiction. In 2021, I was in Williamson County Hospital, dying, down 4 pints of blood of the 10 that I have in. And I said, I'm going to live. I was 310 pounds at that time. I lost 100 pounds in 8.5 months. I put on 30 pounds of muscle. I've never been happier. And so I want, along with all of the success I've had and all of the failure that I have had in business. So I said, and I've been married for all of these years. And so I said, I'm going to put a group together where I can talk to everybody, men though, and we can talk about my take on life. What is the world, right? What is your issue that you're having? I'm going to host weekly calls. That means people get access to me weekly. And here's the critical part. This is the tie-in to why I started the Forge and what it has to do with the peer-to-peer group. Men need to go talk to other men. If my short descriptions of what I'm talking about here is something that you like to hear, that anybody listening likes this process, and then says, I like the way that guy thinks, I like the way that guy looks, I like the way his mind works, I like his experience, then go to the Forge. Because the one thing we don't do very well is we don't go talk to our elders like we used to. We don't go talk to the people who have experience like they used to. I don't know everything. I am so flawed. It's not even funny, but I'm aware of those flaws. And those flaws are where so much value is, in particular, after you've had the kind of experience that I have had, where I started, what I've gone through, and where I find myself now. So I said, you know what? I'm going to start this Forge, and I'm going to start just talking about what men can be. And so many men need to get their physical lives in order. I think everything is downstream of your health. So can you be fat and find success in business? Yes. Can you get married doing that? Yes. Yes, you can. But all of those things are very difficult to do. And I'm telling you, as someone who was fat and got skinny, and most of my life I was healthy until my heart issue came up when I was in my 40s, that it's so much more difficult to do mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. You will find yourself closer to God. You will find yourself closer to your wife, to your children, to your friends, to your work, to your environment, everything about you when your mind is right. How do you get your mind right? Your disciplines to eat the right food, go for a walk, and hit the gym every now and then. And everything will improve downstream of that. So that's where we start. And then from then on, we layer in, what do you want? What are you looking for from it? Are you looking for your health? Are you looking for relationships? Are you looking for business advice? I have a startup booklet in there. I'm just finishing up a 7-figure booklet for somebody who already has a business and just is looking for some advice. And then you get one-on-one with me and everybody else in there under that banner of how I describe to you this war on men and kind of my pushback. It's a place for men to go to seek advice, to get brutal help. None of this holding your hand, safe space BS. I don't believe in any of that. But good, respectful, direct conversations for the warriors that represent the warriors, the kings that we are.
I love it. Entrepreneur, men's group leader, Jerry Brazie. Got your website up on the screen. The Kronos Group.org. Kronos, the kronosgroup.org. I'm sure they can find you there. More of your work, the Forge, and everything you're doing in the realm of entrepreneurship. Thanks for being a part of this conversation, Jerry. It's been great to hear this. Very refreshing. I feel like I'm the only one that talks like this sometimes, but apparently I'm not. So it's good to meet you, man, and good to have you on this platform. Thanks for making us part of your day, brother. Appreciate you, man.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you having me on. Thank you very much.
My pleasure, sir. For you guys that are watching this for the very first time, thanks for making us part of your week. Of course, if you have any kind of questions for Jerry or myself, you can reach out to him via the kronosgroup.org, or if you can't get there, you can reach out to me. I'll send you his way. I'm sure we'll connect on social media and such. But thanks again for listening to the Men's Roundtable Series Spotlight. And of course, every Thursday night, don't forget, every Thursday night, 7 p.m. EST, as long as we got breath in our bodies, we're having the Men's Roundtable Series podcast where we're talking about all things that are germane to men. Husbands, fathers, brothers, and sons, you are invited. We're live on YouTube and Facebook every Thursday night. Great day. Thanks for watching and listening. We're
Men's Roundtable Series, step inside. Real men, real faith, where the truths collide. Voices at the table where the stories get shared. Welcome to the Men's Roundtable, pull up a chair.